Okay, so a resolution for the affirmative side, the United States government should cease all military involvement in the war in Afghanistan. Some definition before I get started. Ceasing all military involvement. This is the forfeiture of the training of the soldiers in Afghanistan, of all armed conflict and violence, and the redaction of United States troops. I want to also define the U.S.-Afghan bilateral security agreement as it pertains to my planned action. This agreement ensures that the U.S. forces will stay in Afghanistan until at least 2024. This thereby extends the war by at least 10 years. The U.S. forces' mission is to, quote, enhance the ability of Afghanistan to deter internal and external threats against its sovereignty, end quote, which includes, quote, advising, training, equipping, and sustaining, end quote, Afghanistan's national defense and security forces. The BSA is not a defense pact which would commit the U.S. to defending Afghanistan if it were attacked by another state. Onto my plan of action. The U.S. should end the bilateral security agreement, which, according to the terms of the agreement, either side can terminate with a 2-year notice. By gradually reducing the number of U.S. troops stationed in Afghanistan in the 2-year time period, while also allowing a gradual implementation of non-military solutions. Such non-military solutions include a combined effort with the coalition to reform the Afghan government, as well as to allow the coalition to follow in the United States' footsteps and redact their troops as well. Increasing the amount of humanitarian assistance to the region and advocating the repatriation and reintegration of Afghan refugees. The aim of this plan of action is to reform and revitalize the Afghan government as well. Onto my significance claims. The first of which is the cost, the destruction, and the death tolls that the war has caused has been rising. My first supporting claim for this is that the United States has increased its use of airstrikes as a means of firepower. According to the Washington Post, the number of U.S. airstrikes is at an all-time high. Quote, as of June 30th, U.S. and coalition aircrafts had dropped or expended 1,634 munitions in Afghanistan so far this year. According to the U.S. Air Force numbers, by comparison, in 2015 and 2016, that figure was 298 and 545 respectively, end quote. My second supporting claim is that the war is causing more and more civilian casualties. According to the New York Times, a record number of civilian lives were lost in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. Quote, 1,662 were killed in the first 6 months of 2017, a 2% increase from the same period last year, the mission reported. An additional 3,581 civilians were wounded, end quote. According to the United Nations, quote, the UNAMA, which is the United States Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, documented 1,180 civilian casualties attributed to core government forces, which is 23% of the total so far this year, but 47% increase compared to the same period last year, primarily as a result of ground engagements, end quote. My third supporting claim, the war has not only cost the United States thousands of soldiers, but also billions of dollars. An article by the weekly magazine The Nation states, quote, since invading in 2001, the U.S. has poured more than $117 billion into Afghanistan, one of the world's poorest countries. The United States has also suffered the loss of 2,400 American soldiers' lives and over 20,000 other wounded. We spent $11 billion in equipping the Afghanistan National Army, which is unable to defend itself. The United States has had as many as 63,500 troops on the ground in Afghanistan. About 8,800 remain today. Afghan casualties are estimated at over 225,000, with a staggering 2.6 million Afghan refugees abroad and another 1 million displaced internally, end quote. On to my inherency claims. The first of which is that the United States bilateral security agreement is prolonging the ongoing military intervention in Afghanistan. This is pretty straightforward, as I defined what the bilateral security agreement was beforehand. It ensures that the U.S. troops will stay in Afghanistan until 2024 at least, and thereby this extends the war for at least another 10 years. My second inherency claim, President Trump seeks to prolong the war because of his beliefs on terrorism. Trump originally intended to pull out our troops in Afghanistan, as was promised prior to his presidency, but once in office, he changed his mind. Trump formally addresses the Afghanistan war during his speech in August, which he discusses a new strategy. However, he offered very little on the details of how the progress would be measured. Furthermore, he did not explain how his approach would differ substantively from the two presidents before him tried unsuccessfully over the past 16 years. Trump claimed that the U.S. troops must, quote, fight to win, end quote. Trump further exerts his beliefs by proclaiming that, quote, we are not nation building again, we are killing terrorists, end quote. onto my solvency claims. Ending the bilateral security agreement and pursuing non-military solutions will gradually allow the war to come to an end. My first supporting claim for this is that ending the BSA allows for a slow redirection of focus towards humanitarian efforts and regional stability. Oxfam, an international confederation of charitable organizations, states that pursuing small solutions for small conflicts will gradually acclimate the state of peace. Quote, community disputes could be considered insignificant against the backdrop of conflict and insurgency, but cases of local disputes can often lead to violence, contributing to the overall insecurity of the nation. However, when addressed at a grassroots level, solving these local conflicts can help bring wider peace to the whole of Afghanistan, end quote. My second supporting claim. According to the United Nations News Center, the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, advocates non-military solutions. Peace is the solution, quote, peace is the solution. The international community, neighboring countries, and all those related to the Afghan crisis need to come together and understand that this is a war that has no military solution, end quote. Guterres also underscored that to achieve this peace, humanitarian efforts, humanitarian assistance to the country must be increased, and conditions need to be made such that Afghan civilians can live in dignity. My second supporting claim. Reforming the crisis of the Afghanistan government will allow the government to focus on state affairs. According to S. Rebecca Zimmerman, a policy researcher for the RAND blog, states that when political reform is achieved, it can, quote, enable the government to engage in more productive regional relations, including building a more stable and trilateral relationship with India and Pakistan, end quote. My third supporting claim, it will allow the return of Afghan refugees as tensions decrease and peace is acquired. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, at the end of 2015, there are nearly 4 million displaced Afghan refugees across the world, while the vast majority reside in Iran and Pakistan. As well as the war gradually subsides, it will allow for the refugees to go home.